neither locally nor abroad, and the judicial system. Again, abroad, very briefly, in my opinion, to have a democratic, non-corrupt institution with a local monarchy, you need three things. You need control on the parliament, the party itself. And if you take the EU, there are many instances that they're doing whatever they wish against the will of the people, ignoring referendums. The Open-Gas is a famous case. The MEPs voted against his position, totally ignored the MEPs, our representatives, and we voted him anyway. That to me is total and utter abuse. You need finance to be controlled, so a proper auditing system. Everybody who's involved in accounts knows that there are checks and balances. They're not being applied neither locally nor abroad, and the judicial system. Again, the fact that you have a European Court of Justice that can make its own laws on the spot, it can actually interpret the laws as it wishes. It is the judge and the jury. Locally, we are seeing too much abuse in our court system too. So parallels are there. You have a government that does whatever it wants. I believe that is wrong, and I believe the only way to check that. I believe realistically, if the Nationalist Party was to be in power, it could very, very easily make exactly the same mistakes that this present government is doing. It was doing it before, 3 years ago, and this is why the people rejected them, because of the abuse and the arrogance and so on and so forth. And it's a ping-pong thing. Both parties just, when it's my turn, I do what I like. When it's my turn, look at all the different countries within the EU, France, name Sweden, Switzerland, Germany, they all have coalition governments. They are stable economically, legally, financially. With a coalition government, you have the balances in place. There is huge, huge abuse in the present EU system. Are we against the EU? No, we are not against the EU. We want either the EU to reform, to go back away from these practices, or else we believe it will self-implode. We said this 3 years ago. It is self-imploding. They seem to refuse to want to change the route they are taking. The people are speaking. The media reviews, millions of reviews with statistics and all this kind of stuff, but the people are speaking. I don't want the EU to dissolve. I think whether we are in the EU or out of the EU, we have to have a strong EU. I believe there is a better route. We'll go into it later on, we don't have enough time. And it's up to us to change it. It's very simple, because they are not going to change it. It's up to us to change it.
So I pass this floor to the Ruja.
I see things from a very different perspective. First of all, the EU is not something abstract. It's not something that's dead. I am the EU. You are the EU. You are the EU. We are all the EU. When we say that we need to establish some common policies within the EU, refer to some kind of federalism. Federalism and homogenization are two completely different things. If there is a diverse and multicultural society, community, it's a Union. Let me just remind you why the EU was concocted in the first place. You know that Europe was torn apart by 2 world wars, and so the need was strongly felt that not just an economic union, but a union that guarantees peace, that guarantees solidarity is formed. So if we want to keep the EU alive, we have to live the principles, the values, which actually created the European Union. We have to live them. We can't say that we are for solidarity and then we say, no, we can't take on the refugee because we're not taking the refugees. Well, there is space for everyone if they are real refugees and if we use all the possibilities that Europe can offer. You know as well as I do that Europe cannot survive now without the injection of new blood coming from everywhere, not just because of unfortunate situations, because the influx of inflation which has taken its toll on the popularity of the EU, that is one of the major issues which has taken its toll, because then you have the nationalists and ultra-nationalists who present a very different picture. But we know that Europe survives and has a future because those are part of it. You can't imagine Germany surviving without its Turkish citizens, Turkish German citizens. You can't imagine Britain, which is now growing up, surviving without its multicultural backup. We all know when Merkel decided to take in 1 million Europeans, it was not just because she's a very astute European politician, but also because she knows that the birth rate in her country is such that to support the pensions of her nation, of the people, of her citizens, she needs people
So excuse
to
me,
contribute.
let's keep on the line of corruption.
Yes,
The
okay.
question was, do you think we're more corrupt than ever before? Both locally and internationally?
And that is relative. Although we live in a highly informed society, we also live in a post-truth society where truth is not valued. So, because that is relative, what used to be seen as something bad is very often now, and you have seen some of that happening in our own country, is normalized. We are forced to accept new norms. Like when we had the Panama Papers scandal, we were forced to accept the new norm that you can have a minister or a chief of staff by your side who has a company in Panama opened right after they were elected to power. So that is a new norm which is being pushed onto the elected. Okay, so it all depends on how you look at it. But corruption was always there. But it's up to us to instill the values and the ethics necessary in the youngest of the young generation, so it grows with them, so that we can stand up to this attitude of nonchalant, laissez-faire corruption. So, yes, I think that there is corruption. With the information society, we might know more about it, the standards have been lower, but we can still fight it and we can still overcome.
Thank you very much. Joseph?
First of all, I'd like to comment on something which my colleague over there said about the ECJ and about our justice system. Obviously, it's controversial, yes it is, but laws are up for interpretation. That's why we have the system. If you say that judges are interpreting the law, and through their interpretation of the law they're being corrupt and you can't trust them, then I can't agree with you, because laws are there, because they're not clear sometimes, and interpretation is necessary. So I wouldn't agree with you when you say that by interpreting the law they're being part of a corrupt system. But still, yes, the selection of the judiciary is controversial and it has to be improved. But I wouldn't go as far as saying that we cannot trust the judicial system, because otherwise we lose everything that holds our society in place, in my opinion. With regards to your question about are we more corrupt than we ever were, yes, we are corrupt. You tell me you're coming from the Nationalist Party, you were 25 years in government, your members of parliament were the ones who were corrupt as well. Yes, and it's normal that when something like that happens, the people will say stop. And he also rightly, my colleague also rightly mentioned, and that's what they did. So now we have a Labour government, which is okay, which is something which is part of the system. But also, again, there's the same problem. So this is something which has to continue evolving. We have to keep working on. We'll never get a perfect system, and that is the biggest challenge. Why are you alienated from politics? Because they say, I don't want to get involved in all this mudslinging, in all this corrupt practices which people in politics are involved in. I want to graduate from university, I want to get a job, I want to have a good salary. Those are my ambitions, and I respect everyone has an opinion, but it's very difficult to be involved in politics, especially locally, when you can be labelled as being a nationalist or being a Labourite, and that's it for the rest of your life, and people will tell you something or another. So when I approach people and tell them to be involved, when I tell people to be involved, the first is that they say, no, I don't want to be part of that. They give us suggestions, they want to help, but they don't want to be involved. And that's the biggest challenge to actually start and changing things.
What can happen to have people go beyond their fears of being labelled go beyond their fears.
You have to convince them that by being involved, their personal lives are not at stake, that they can continue living their normal lives.
But in a society like sorry for interrupting.
This is
450,000 people, you can meet a politician in your own street.
by being professional. By being professional and accepting other people's opinions, being ethically correct, being morally correct. You have your opinion, I have mine. We can still work together and get things done.
Yes, of course, that's right.
And from the bigger point, it's very relevant what you said. Because you said that the transition from one type of government to the other didn't actually give us the benefits of freshness of a new kind of politics. But it's obvious now why that happened. And this is very relevant to why corruption is so strong in politics, getting stronger. Because we have a situation where corporations, let's look at the global view first. There are corporations which are much more wealthy, much stronger than national governments. And they lobby and they, how do I put it, hijack governments to push their own agenda. Now, in Malta, we are seeing something very similar on a much smaller scale. We're a much smaller country. But we do have our own industrialist establishment and our own establishment, business establishment. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be business friendly. I'm all for business, but we have a situation where it's becoming more and more obvious that the industrialist community, that this establishment, which was sort of controlling what was happening in the previous legislature, is now controlling what's happening in this legislature. And a very critical example was when we were discussing the master plans, and it was obvious that the consultants of the developers were drawing up the plan for us, for the nation. We were paying the consultants of the private investors to do our own master plan. So that is one of the problems that.
May I ask a question?
Very.
Can all maybe answer this, and then we can go to Michael for this. Okay, so first we go with Michael's comments, and then my question was, how do you reconcile the free market economy with these lobbyists being so strong? As if we are letting them free rein, because it's inevitable that they will have the undue influence on governments. But first of all,
so the first question of if we are more corrupt now than we were in the past. I think that's a very debatable question, and we can continue debating that forever. I think what the second is, what can we do now to make sure that we reduce the corruption? And I think even to tackle what Joseph was saying before, we have to make sure that we have a very strong civil society. Because even if people may lose faith in political parties, etc., the government, the opposition, and especially in Malta during the past, I think 2 years, there's been a more enrichment and enlargement of civil society and pressure groups who, independently of political beliefs, etc., keep government to account. Whatever, if it's a nationalist government, a Labour government, a coalition government, or whatever we can see. But only if there is a strong system outside of the political class which actually keeps in check the whole system can we actually ever believe that there would be a good structure. And I'm not referring to
Civil society.
Civil society. NGOs like Jeff, which organize debates like we are having today, other organizations, and even from a youth perspective, if someone does not maybe think that his place is within one of any of the political parties who are present, there are a lot of NGOs, a lot of pressure groups. There must be at least one which is very close to whatever you think. Get involved, push forward your ideas, and make sure that you are heard. Because if you are heard, eventually you will make some noise, and some politician will have to actually listen and say, well, he might be right, or she might be right. What can I do to make this? To your question about the free market, well, I think that we have to see what do we understand by when we say that we want a free market economy, or we are living in a free market economy. When I think about the free market, I don't understand a place like Mexico where cartels literally rule the market and the whole country. Where I see a free market economy, there is still a place for the government in the game. The government is the regulator. And the government must be there to make sure that it regulates the market. It cannot let everyone do whatever they want. Because finally, when we go vote, we vote for a government. We don't vote for a company or any other lobbying group. I vote for a government because I believe that his style of regulation will be beneficial for the economy, for the whole country. So yes, the government has a role to play in the free market. In my opinion, it should be limited to that of a regulator, but it must be a regulator. You cannot let everyone do their own rules, because we vote for a government and not for the rules.
Okay, so there was the right foot bias.
How can you, if I may, how can you believe in something like the European Court of Justice, where, remember we mentioned politicians being accountable for the accounts and judicial the official figures of last year's discrepancy in the accounts of the EU was 90 billion. The real figures, according to RAND, which is an organisation that the EU itself, an external organisation, that the EU itself got involved to see. They are actually claiming that there's 990 billion annually that's being lost accounts. Now, every time the auditors, they'll bring it out again and expose people who are meant to look after our accounts, whistle. Every time they whistle, they say, listen, something's wrong here. I found something wrong. I don't want to talk fictitiously, I want to give you some figures, okay? Dr. Schmidt-Brown worked in the EU Statistics Agency Eurostat for 9 years and became concerned about a number of biased studies reporting their suspicion that she whistled. She ended up, actually, the Eurostat revealed what the investigators called a vast enterprise of looting. So this is the auditors themselves, in which senior employees, etc., she was sacked, she was removed, they let her go on sick leave. Another guy, accountant who worked in the European Court of Auditors, an accountant who worked in the European Court of Watt, his name is, Robert Doodle-Watt, complained to the European Ombudsman, sorry, I don't have my glasses with me. And he was downgraded, he was sacked, and they fired him. So what's happening is, there is corruption. 990 billion euro a year is not a small part. It's not something that you don't account for. People who do speak up are being crushed by the system. Okay? Wrong. The auditors, if they have had, the European Union has had huge issues with its accounts since 1977. Your parents would have been here in 1977 probably. Students here, not even married, probably dating or something, when the EU was flagging huge. What's happened since 1977, call it 40 years of huge abuse? Name me one person with Olaf and thousands of people, name me one person who has been prosecuted for fraud. Wrong. The system, so I'm talking here because I believe the subject is, can we change things? Yes, we can. I think there is a clear way forward. We haven't discussed yet, I know I have to conclude, I'm sorry, but fraud is happening on a big scale in Europe. Then we've been told federalism. No, the few are taking huge lumps of money away from us by saying, hey, I am all for help with the immigrants, I am all for you know this. Alianza Bidla is not right-wing, and we are left and right-wingers in the centrist area. And we are actually filling in the gap that's being left by the other two parties, so that the right wing does not come in. Because you know what, in every other country, when the left and right wing have left a void, the ultra-right wing comes in. Okay, we are trying to prevent that happening in Malta. We can go through our policies, but it's not the right place. Yes, we can change things if you guys are serious. Yes, we are serious.
Thank you very much. So we have the first extra panelist, Emma Beck from JEF. Sorry. The first time. Please contribute to the discussion.
Just to say, my opinions are my personal opinions, and then I can't speak about JEF, but this is like the person as a young person. particularly on what you were mentioning, as in how civil society can really push to be a pressure point for whatever government is in place with regards to corruption. But I think there are two big problems with this. The first is that I think not just our generation, but I think a lot of people have big trust issues with the media, because you read figures. On one news site you read one figure, on another you read another figure. Until obviously there are some documents that are leaked and through which you can't really piece the puzzle together, because those are blatant, obviously it's in your face. In some corruption cases, or alleged corruption cases, you don't know who to trust, per se, when it comes to your access to the information. So I think my first question, it's not that can be solved like this, but how can we pressure or move to a point where we as citizens of our society get accurate information? And the second part is that I think locally it's very much felt, but even I feel internationally, even though I'm not very much in touch with some political systems of certain countries, some more than others. But I feel locally, especially with both parties, major parties in government, I feel sometimes that when it comes to certain scams that happened in both cases of both parties, there is a sense of comfort. As in we have a very, because of our political climate, as in like we, you have a certain amount of voters who will vote for you anyway, so why even, bother or panic? Why panic at all? Why take action? If there are some people who will be following you blindly. So my first question is about the media and how we're going to push to get accurate information. The second is, how can we enhance a culture of perhaps more critical thinking, even to a party who, as in like we've been kind of used to leaning towards or against so on and so forth. How can we encourage that?
So I want snapshot reactions, so please keep in 30 seconds so we can move forward. Very interesting questions about post-mortem and recent scandals abroad. So let's start.
Getting accurate information across to the citizens is a duty of any government where it sought. Any genuine, honest government who gives its citizens the true information. I agree, that doesn't happen. And the media cannot be trusted. Why? Because in a small country like ours, the media, most of the time, needs support, some kind, so they are obliged to one party or another. So that is the problem, it's true, but when you come to choose the political class that you want to see govern this country, then it's up to you to make the right choice. For the first time, after a very long time, we've had Alternativa Democratica for quite some time, for the last 10 years, most of you are listening. There's a new party, your party, that you can form, that you can create to your own needs, to the needs of this country, which can take that dogma forward. We believe in honest politics. We do not accept financing by corporations. It's crowdfunding or nothing. It would have been better if it had been public funding. I leave them out of money to everybody equally, to spend it on nothing, but that didn't happen. Okay? Because what's happening is this. If you look at China, for instance, which is what they're saying, they silence their people. Someone speaks up, they silence them. With you, they cannot actually silence your social media intentions, but they do control the way you think. If you look at your homeless, tweets coming all the time, news items coming all the time, from all the different media houses, not just local but everywhere, and you hardly have any time to think quietly in your own space. They take up your space. So just because they cannot shut you up if you shout, because we live in a democratic country, they stop you from thinking. And this is what you have to rise above and rise against. You need to look at the facts. You can at least get as much proper information and accurate information as possible, even from external sources, because then you have like Eurostat, for instance, etc., where you can get closer to what's happening in Malta than the actual figures we have here. And through that, you analyze, you discuss, you participate like she did, and you will be part of the change you want to see. And I didn't say that, God discipline. So you can be part of the change you want to see. But you cannot patch on the old party. It's not going to work. You have to create something new. And we have started this new force which has to be created to your requirements, to our country's requirements, to our present requirements, and to our future requirements.
Who else would like to let us play shortly? So let's start with Michael and then
First question with the media. You know what? I think that when we live in a world which has a free media, it's very difficult to see what a particular media outlet says or another. And let's be honest, not only in Malta, but in all of the world, there is no truly independent, neutral, 100% unbiased media outlet. I think, to relate to also the second question, I think we have to make sure that we educate, even in our education system in schools, to have more critical thinking. And it is only if our education system promotes critical thinking within the youth that we can actually have a population which thinks critically and which will actually help in also electing a government, etc. In fact, just to conclude, one of our proposals as Councillor Zaza is to have civic education in our secondary school, in the obligatory education, so that everyone, before they leave school at least, they will know what a politician's role should be, why are they getting paid from the public, what should an MP do, and not in his partisan sense, but what it truly do when that goes in Parliament, when they do their research, when they present their proposals, their votes, etc. So yes, and we hope that if that actually proposal is included, it will help to have a more educated, critical thinking, and politically educated new generation, which will actually help also in the choose.
Thank you very much. 2 points. Final say, and then move on.
All media, worldwide, has this common agenda. Forget trying to get fairness out of CNN, Al Jazeera, BBC, wherever. They are all there to pass a message. So, my reply to you is do not rely on media alone. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of it, you have to go out and find out the truth. And the truth is out there. If you look, if you research, and you guys are good at research, you will find the truth. Secondly, I don't believe that you should be actively involved just in NGOs, etc., etc. I think you should be involved in politics, not in NGOs. Why? Because it is in Parliament that you change the laws. NGOs in Malta and in the EU are bulldozed over. They might be 100% correct, take green issues, take environment, take people's issues. They are just bulldozed over. So my suggestion is don't just involve yourself at this level, but go right to the top. If you want real change, you have to do the change yourself. We are going right to the top.
Thank you very much.
But still, the last point, do not expect any party, including Alliance of the Week, to be fair when it comes to equality. Why? In politics, this is the reality. Politics is war. It's a game of chess, it's a game of logic, it is a matter of right moves at the right time. No party in Malta will allow us, talk about the Nationalist Party and the Labour Party, will allow us to talk freely as we are doing right now to you, like this, because they do not want you to receive our message, because they want you to receive their message. If you people here are serious about change, involve yourselves directly. Do not expect anybody else to make changes for you. It's not going to happen.
We have another guest on the seat. Please raise your hand and please tell them about your name.
My name is Nefertiti. I'm a student at the University of Malta, and I come from Rhodes, Switzerland. My question is, you both talk about being involved, and if you can't, if you see, because of the way it is, getting involved in a political party right now, it might be corrupted, or you might see a way to change the system from the inside. So create your own. That's good, but how can you create your own when the political system itself is impossible for you to actually create your own? Let's say, when you look at the UK, for example, if you vote for a third party, it's very unlikely for it to be in Parliament. If you look at places like the US, for example, even if you vote for someone like Bernie Sanders, it's very unlikely for him to have very many votes because of the way the electoral system is done. So how can you actually change anything if you can't change the party rather than from the inside, and you can't create your own because it's very unlikely for them to be in Parliament? What are you supposed to be doing?
So, very brief answers, because we're derailing from the argument. This is not about the electoral system or third parties.
But this is very relevant.
Yes, it is very relevant. That's why
Because,
answers, then we can move to something.
for instance, I still created a new political party because I have faith in you, in all of the people who can think on their feet with their own minds. It has to start somewhere. To clean up the system, we cannot just, we will discuss here and there. It has to grow from the bottom up. And yes, I have faith in students, I have faith in our people. Mr. Cuccinino mentioned a very crucial point. We have to have the education necessary for our people to be thinkers. For a very long time, for hundreds of years, our people were either colonized or were governed, ruled by foreigners or what have you. So the mentality here is to say, not to think how you can actually create your own idea of what your country should be like. So teaching critical thinking, encouraging students from very young age to ask questions and not making them conform so that they won't ask questions. You have to work on that. Education, and yes, faith in the minds of our people.
A very short point. I do agree with you that it's difficult to change political parties, and this is perhaps where I might differ with my colleagues over here who think that the political parties can't be changed. If political parties don't change, they won't survive. Both parties in Malta and all parties around the world keep changing, keep evolving. That is why they survived for the last couple of decades. Let's say decades. In other countries, they've been there for hundreds of years. So yes, I do believe that political parties can change, and I do believe that the youth can change political parties, which is why I find myself involved in a political party. Is it difficult? It's very difficult. You're challenging grassroots politicians, you're challenging people who have very conservative values, sometimes at least within the party I support, and it's difficult, it's challenging, but at the same time it's something which, if you want to do it, if you like politics, then you have to get involved in the system, and I think it's your duty to get involved in the system.
So let's move on to the next question.
Just 30 seconds. I apologize, I will be cliche. If Nelson Mandela thought like you just did now, change would not happen. If Martin Luther King thought like you did, it's impossible to beat the guys, change would not happen. If Gandhi thought like you did, change would not happen. You know what? My decision was simple. I do not want to be part of a corrupt system. I want real change. If I don't get there, it doesn't matter. It's not to win. It's the fact that you refuse to be beaten. Alright? So if you want real change, get up, start fighting. It is extremely hard. Sacrifices are huge, but the rewards are huge. And change can happen. Brexit, you mentioned it. Change in the United States. Who would have thought Trump would be president of the United States? Out of question, who would have thought Sanders, a socialist, going so far? But he did, because he refused to be sacked by the system. The choice is simple. You bow your head and you accept that this is how it is, a corrupt, abusive system that will crush you, and it is taking away your rights, or is having to fight for my rights. It's simple. I choose my rights.
So, now we're going to something more substantive, because the last three questions were a bit abstract and thought-provoking. Now we're going to go to something of more substantive opinion. So, in Malta, it has frequently been the case, and more recently than so, it's been in the light of the Panama Gate scandal, where finger-pointing and calling out people and parties corruption is an automatic reaction to being called corrupt. Have appropriate measures been taken in the case of corruption allegations in Malta, or have they all been swept aside without appropriate action being taken? So this is something more specific to our current situation. Are we tackling corruption? And let's mention specific cases. Don't be afraid. I'm sure you will have something to say about this. So, are we taking action, or are we sweeping things aside for expediency's sake?
So, no, I don't think that concrete action has been taken. And when we say concrete action, I think that as youth, when we see certain problems, we expect substantive changes, meaning laws that might actually be changed, for whatever. For example, there are certain stuff, for example, you mentioned Panama, which are not illegal technically, so especially what we know today is not illegal. From the facts we know today, nothing illegal was done, but should it be illegal? But maybe yes. But we never actually discussed that.
Say that tax avoidance should be.
No, I'm not saying a yes or a no, but that was never actually discussed. What I think is that we actually at least should have a discussion on that subject. As a country, we completely avoided the subject completely. We did not even go to the topic. Should it not? No, I don't know. I'm not going here to tell you it should or it shouldn't, but at least we should have a discussion, a serious discussion, above the political frame on the subject.
So you're saying that we kept at this level of name calling.
Yes, we kept it at the level that
Name shaming.
we're saying that you are corrupt, and then they say, but you are even corrupted. Well, yes, maybe no. But we avoided the discussion completely. The real discussion was, there were people, even politicians, who had money abroad. Well, is that illegal? No. But should it be? We did not even discuss that whatsoever. And that is the real problem.
To be the devil's advocate once again, Malta benefits more than most European countries because of these tax avoidance schemes. Let's be honest with ourselves, let's be honest with the whole floor over here. Without trusts, we would have slightly less competitive economy. So maybe that was one of the reasons as well.
Our own minister decided to use another jurisdiction, another financial jurisdiction, and not both. So it was a double blow. It was a blow because though it's legal, it is not appropriate for a minister. And it was a blow because he didn't even use his country's facilities to do such a thing. So it was a double blow. And, so I will answer your question. No, we're not happy. You have to look at it from the voter perspective and from the government in vigor perspective. Well, if we look at the elections, as I have said before, the people elected a lot of cases who had been implicated in corruption on both sides. On both sides. So the people look at corruption as something that they can, maybe because of the message we're giving them, just set aside. They don't realize the price they're paying for corruption in their country. Okay? Then there's the government. The government, one of the things that really required is the bad example we'll be giving to generations who are looking at us to show them the way as people in authority. Now, if you tell your generation that that can be accepted, it's nothing, but okay, regarding the, for instance, the premier thing, we made a mistake, things could have been done better. Okay, but the people have paid for your mistake. So you should resign. And someone else should take your place. That's what happens everywhere else. You had the Minister of Industry of Spain resigning because he had had an account in Panama 20 years before or something like that. Prime Minister of Iceland. So, and the most important thing is that we set the parameters of the standards that are acceptable to our country so that you people can then enforce them for the next generation.
Before we go on to Joseph, I'm going to ask another question to the thing. If we're actually pragmatic and realistic, how large is our pool of talent? If this culture of resignation, which is up for debate, actually comes true in a few years' time, we will have situations
People would have complete efficiency. People would stop being so blatantly corrupt if they know that they have to pay the consequences for their
That's
corruption.
right.
So that would be the first. But what thing that I wanted to mention, because you were saying about journalists or being biased, that doesn't going to mention. Panama came out because of journalistic work. So sometimes things are done properly. So it's something that I'm not mentioning law. I'm mentioning the consortiums of journalists.
Yes, there is a massive pool of them, but you know what? They stay away from the political class because they don't want that thing to rub on them. So yes, we have to.
Again, is it all the cause? I mean, is the root cause of this pool of land going elsewhere just because of corruption? Because I think the private sector is more efficient, more structured.
And you end up because it's a difficult situation to handle. Almost giving up on the system, and that's what I'm here to tell you. Don't give up on the system. You create your system that works for you, that will give a country that is better for you than the one you found yourself. Not worse. We cannot afford to give up on our country. Our country is worth fighting for. Our culture is worth fighting for. Our way of doing things is worth our standards. Our way of fighting for. If we want to keep and treasure our freedom, that's what this is all about. Because freedoms will start being taken away because of malpractices in all levels of society, institutions, civil service, in all levels of society.
Joseph, did you want to conclude? Because
I mentioned another point which might be a bit controversial, but something which is particularly challenging Malta is the small size of our country. So people know their politicians, they know them because they live next door, because their aunt or uncle is a cousin of someone, whatever. So they know their politicians. So it's an even bigger challenge for Maltese politicians to be completely, wouldn't say clean, but not to be involved in some form of malpractice. I'm not saying it's okay, I'm not justifying anything that's going on, but I'm saying it's a bit of a bigger challenge when someone thinks about having 100,000 constituents and having 25,000 constituents, which is something.
But then Congress is also because the people know you, and they know how you live, and they know a lot about you, that you're close to them, then you are supposed to be even more transparent. They come. So the other side is.
so let's turn to Mohammed.
I'd like to go back to the original question. Can you just repeat it quickly? Because I know.
So the question was, have appropriate measures been taken in light of the recent scandals, or are we just sweeping things under the carpet once again?
I'd like to ask you a question yourselves. Do you believe something was wrong? Just a show of hands. Does anybody here believe something was wrong with Panama case? Yeah?
Okay, we seem to have
We all believe something's wrong with Panama case. The EU thinks something's wrong with Panama case. Everybody, the majority of people, thinks something stinks with Panama case. Last week we had the whole cabinet, the whole Maltese cabinet, go up to the EU. By the way, let me go back and say, there are members of Parliament present here in this room, and I salute them because of their integrity when they stood up and they said people should have resigned. Okay, that is what I believe as well. They should have resigned immediately. And if they don't resign, the Prime Minister should have had the steroids to have said, I will give you 2 hours to resign yourself, or I will make you resign myself. That didn't happen.
That's what there's nothing illegal.
No. If there is, now, let's go back a year. Let's go back to Manuel Maladino. The case of Manuel Maladino. The Prime Minister stood up and said, this is a straight government and so on and so forth. If there is a whiff of something being wrong, immediately people should resign until the investigation is done. You know what? Nobody resigned, etc. But let's go back to the last week. The Maltese cabinet went up to meet Juncker, who was, in my opinion, all over the place. I love this guy. Wait. There is an investigation going on now. There is a minister who is seriously implicated at this stage, allegedly seriously implicated. And you are there. The image is all wrong. And more, even worse than that, the people that the EU wanted to send to Malta to investigate the Panama case were refused to come here. And we're saying, and you ask me a question, is there proper control? No, there is not. Everything within the present EU structure, in my opinion, is a prone 990 billion euro a year. What's happening to that? You try, if you have a company later on, hopefully you'll be this, you try not to have audited accounts. You try to say, it's not 10% of my, I have no idea where it went. See what happens to you. See if that's acceptable. Since 1977 till today, no proper audited accounts. Wrong.
So your name is surname?
I'm Timothy, and he said that, and I'm surprised not what I said. These recent scandals that there were people who should have resigned. If they didn't resign, the Prime Minister went and told him to resign next couple of hours. So I asked, why didn't he make him resign? We expect to live in a democratic society, yet we are living in a democratic society, yet we're not.
Yes.
Why? I really want to know, why didn't he make him resign?
Let me tell you this. When that happens, I need a vote of no confidence. First in the culprit and then in the coalition. Because we have to wait for him now. So even though there were quite a few representatives who obviously objected to this kind of behavior, they couldn't vote freely. for me to vote freely on that issue, because I resigned on an environment issue, I had to go on my own. Because you are forced to vote with the government. Now, we are proposing, with the new country forces proposing, we will never have a whip. If we have 5 people in the parliament, they will vote according to what they think best. Obviously, we will have our guidelines, but for instance, it's a matter of conscience. But should I force you? You have your arguments, I have mine. And governments change. When they are in opposition, they say one thing, and the students vote, and they go to government, and everything changes. And this is if nothing's happening. So that is one reason. That doesn't happen that much, for instance, in Britain. You see people voting across party lines very frequently. So you have a better exercise in democracy.
But could it be the case that our parties are stronger and there is actually consensus within the parties? I'd like to ask someone within the party now. Joseph, do you think there is actually a huge majority of parliamentarians who vote in favour of party lines because they actually believe so? Because all we're hearing is against the parties.
Definitely, on most, let's say on most issues, they do agree with what the party say, that's why they are part of the party. But then there are controversial issues in which, therefore, I would imagine, it's not in parliament, so I've never had to vote for something which I don't believe in. I am in the party structure, and in the party structure, everyone votes according to what they think is right. So it's not the first time that during a party executive meeting we vote against each other, because that's how things are within the party. But I would imagine that sometimes you're forced to vote on party lines because that's the order that's been given.
Okay.
Last comment, yes. Clearly, 10 seconds. Clearly, you are not in agreement with our Prime Minister, yes? Do you want to see the change or not? I'm telling you now, telling everybody here, unless you do it yourself, it's not going to happen. Do not expect somebody else. You have to say to the people, no, we're going to make a change.
But you expect a change from the people, but and then
through politics. Not
yes, but also the people are sort of like moving away from politics because they're giving up. You know why? Because current politics is losing their trust. And we cannot gain their trust.
That's what they want. If people don't vote, if people don't vote, they will be there to stay. The monopoly and the establishment. If you decide to change it, you can change it. You have to team up. You have to team up.
You and the people can make a change. Because they are not going to make a change.
Even within the party, yeah? Even within the party. So within the party, I don't go and try and change something. I speak to someone within the party and change it. I have to go as a group and Islam. And that we think that we should push this forward. I would like to do the party
because we are at the end, we have exceeded our time. Failure wants to give me. So 30 seconds each, your last remark.
30 seconds,
Finally, I think that yes, we all have to work together to make sure that we fight corruption, but I have to respectfully disagree with the Pinto on the fact of the pressure groups. At the council at least we represent 41 full members who are all NGOs, all come from different backgrounds, and even in the past, when civil society has united and pushed forward a united front, they have managed to put change, and I think it is a very dangerous argument, and it will very harmful to democracy to say that pressure groups are useless, and only if civil society and pressure groups unite together and push forward their agenda can we have a truly representative society.
So, I understand completely the distrust in the political parties that you must all have. I do believe that it's your duty to be involved in politics because that's why on a Saturday morning we're here debating the political situation internationally. So I think that you have to be involved. You have to be involved in either a pressure group in a political party, in whatever you believe in, because it's not just a right which is there, it's your duty. And I think the more youths are involved, the more easier it is to get the system changed, to get the people who've been there for the past 30, 40 years, and change those people to a more liberal, open society so that we can actually get things done.
I urge you to think, but not just think. Translate that thought into action. and persevere. Yesterday we had a practical example of what perseverance can give us. We had some voters whose vote was thrown out or given to someone else because there was a political party who persevered for the people's rights. The people's rights were vindicated. So think, act, persevere, and we will get it.
Thank you. On my side. The other way you get good results in your thesis is in your exam is you work hard. You work hard. Nothing in life is easy. Okay? Change can happen if you work hard. If you just do it yourself because nobody else is going to do it, we know that the present system in Malta and in Europe is corrupt. And we all want a different, better, democratic system. It is possible, but it is hard. Now, if you people expect somebody else to do it for you, it's not going to happen. I will say one more thing. Traditional parties, both grassroots and people at the very top, talk to parties, little parties like Allianz and I'm sure like yourselves, they are internally unhappy because of their systems. They are genuinely like this. They cannot make the right decisions. The only way you can change the system is through the third viable party, and thankfully, after 3 years of very hard work, we are now seeing that new parties are evolving. Which direction they go, which one of us gets there, I don't care, as long as change is happening. And change will only happen when you guys make the change happen, nobody else can. I really wish that if there's one lesson, one message that we can give to you is change, you make it happen.
Thank you very much. Tim?
Finally, declassing us for us to make a change. I believe that if our own government wants us to live in a democratic society and see that they are the ones to make our decisions, that the change first has to come from them, not from us.
They believe
But if they just want us to be happy and live democratically, it has to happen.
So,